Good morning to all my dear students. Today we are going to discuss about the concept of written statement as well as its drafting under the subject captioned as drafting, pleading and convincing. Before starting with the today's topic, I just want to recapitulate certain important points for the better understanding of this topic. As you all are aware that the pleadings that the word written statement has not been defined till date, but it is altogether the part of pleadings as mentioned under Order 6 Rule 1 CPC, wherein pleadings defines or includes as plaint or written statement. Thereafter, we had also discussed about the particulars needs to be mentioned or the fundamental rules of pleadings. Thereafter, we had also discussed about the verification and amendment of pleadings. Further, we had also discussed with you the departure clause regarding the pleadings. As you all are aware that pleadings includes plaint or written statement. Plaint is a document by which a civil suit is instituted in a court of law, wherein the plaintiff has to disclose all the cause of action arose in his favor before the court of law and thereby claims or put or demand relief from the defendant. And now we are going to start with the written statement. As you all are aware that after the civil suit has been instituted in a court of law and after the same being admitted in by the court thereafter issues the summons to the other side, that is the defendant herein. And in the defendant in the summons, the defendant is directed to appear before the court on a certain date along with its reply. So this reply filed by the defendant is known as written statement, even though the said word has not been defined under the definition of or definition given under section 2 of Code of Civil Procedure 1908. So I just want to recapitulate this all these particulars to you. Now, as I had already apprised you that the word written statement has not been defined in the code, and it is the reply by the defendant to the plaint filed by the plaintiff. Thirdly, the this WS of the plaintiff has to be filed within a period of 30 days from the date of the service of the summons on the defendant. And this 30 days period can also further be extended up to a period of 90 days. After 90 days, if defendant fails to file his written statement, then my dear students, the defendant can resort to section 148 of the Code of Civil Procedure for extension of time for another period of 30 days. That means he is all in have under CPC, it is 120 days. Now the question arose, what would be the position after the period of 120 days? After 120 days, the defendant can also file an application under section 5 of the Limitation Act, that is for condonation of delay. In condonation of delay application, it is the duty or it is the duty of the defendant to state the sufficient reasons for his non-appearance on the date mentioned earlier, and thereby satisfies the court regarding the same. And if he would show, if he shows to the court that there was sufficient reasons for his non-appearance on the last date of the hearing, then in that particular case, the court has the power under Section 5 to condone the delay and thereby to take the WS on record. This delay can be more than 120 days, or the delay can also be more than 200 days. It depends upon the reasons shown by the defendant and also upon the satisfaction of the court in this regard. Now, I just want to go further. What does the written statement contains, or what are the points to be considered as a law student or by a lawyer while drafting a written statement? WS has to be drafted with the same care as that of the plaintiff. So as the plaintiff has to take due care while drafting his plaint, so it is also incumbent upon the defendant to file the same with as much as care as have taken by the plaintiff while drafting it. Second, it shall bear the same name of the court, number of the suit, and the parties as it is in the plaint. Further, defendant is also bound to produce all the document in support of his defense along with the plaint, along with the written statement filed by him. Third, heading or the title of the written statement shall remain the same as it is in the plaint, except in case of more than one party to the plaint as plaintiffs and defendants. So from this, we may infer that the title of the WS shall remain the same. Next, it must contain all possible defenses on behalf of the defendant. So, all the defenses like the plea of res judicata or the principle of limitation law or of any other law whereby the suit is going to be hit or barred by law. So all those possible pleas he can take in his written statement. And in case if he fails to take any defense, then he will not be allowed to plead it at a later stage. Further, along with the same, he can also take the plea of set-off and counterclaim in the written statement. As you all are aware that under Order 8 Rule 6 and Order 8 Rule 6A, the defendant can file set-off and counterclaim along with the written statement. And a plea may also be taken in the written statement itself with regard to set-off and counterclaim. Next, denial must be specific. As you all are aware that he is bound or he is supposed to deny all the paras to the plaintiff, and that denial to the paras as stated by the plaintiff in his plaint, and that denial must be specific and it must not be vague or evasive. And if it is not denied specifically, then it will tantamount to admission. As you all are aware that admission is defined under Section 17 of the Indian Evidence Act. So from this, we may infer that there is an interplay between the Indian Evidence Act and the Code of Civil Procedure. No pleading other than by way of defense to a set-off or counterclaim can be claimed. So, apart from these, you may not be able to file any other pleadings other than set-off or counterclaim and along with this written statement. The defense of the defendant can be classified in the following broad divisions. So the defenses can also be divided or classified into the following categories. Number one, admission and denial. Number two, dilatory tactics. Number three, objections in point of law and special defenses. And last, set off. The written statement should be drafted in the same order by taking up each and every allegation of the fact. Each fact of the plaint as alleged in the plaint should be signed out, and it should be either be admitted or denied by the defendant. If the defendant wishes to add any affirmative statement of his own version to the admission or denial of any allegation of the plaint, or to add anything in order to explain his admission, then he has to state all those particulars in the written statement itself. And there is an exception to the admission and denial also under Order 8 Rule 3. And that exception, and these exceptions are: number one, because it applies to facts and not to law. There are two exceptions to the general rule of admission and denial, that is, every allegation of the plaint should either be admitted or denied, specifically which matters of law and inference from law, if pleaded in the plaint, need not be traversed, because Order 8 Rule 3 CPC applies to facts only. So as it would be applicable only to facts, so there are certain exceptions. This is one of the exceptions to this rule. Next, dilatory tactics. It means pleas involving time tending to delay the ends of justice. So as you are all aware that justice delayed is justice denied, so all dilatory pleas must be taken at the earliest possible opportunities, like the non-joinder or the misjoinder of parties. Next, objections in point of law. Objections in point of law should raise some point of substance and not merely a technical defect. When a defendant raises an objection on the ground that the suit is barred by law of limitation, or that the plaintiff does not disclose the cause of action, these objections are objections referred to as the objections on point of law. So these must also be put up at the earliest possible opportunities and must be decided on merits. Next, when the defendant, instead of denying a fact of a contract and agreement, he admits the same and alleges that he was induced by misrepresentation or by fraud, then these are the special defenses. Then he has to put up those defenses in the written statement himself, whereby he may state that under this circumstance there was a fraud committed upon him. As such, the contract may be vitiated. And the last one is set off. A defendant to a suit for the recovery of money based on promissory note or on the sale or purchase of the goods and on payment of price of goods can not only defend the suit but can also claim set off in respect of his own claim. So these are the possible defenses which defendant may take in his written statement. Now, what are the documents or the forms which has to be filed along with the written statement? The list of the document, if he relies on certain documents which are in his possession, then those documents must be produced or must be filed along with the WS, so as to satisfy the requirement of Section 63 to Section 65 of Indian Evidence Act. Further, he has also to file the form of address and the power of attorney if the WS is filed through his counsel. So these are the documents which needs to be filed by the defendant along with his written statement. Next, what is the effect of non-filing of WS within the time stipulated given under the law? This was so held in the case of Balraj Taneja versus Sunil Madan. If the defendant fails to file his written statement, then under Order 8, Rule 10, CPC, the court may pronounce a judgment against him. But before pursuing the action under Order 8, Rule 10, the court should be little cautious while proceedings under Order 8, Rule 10, because it is the duty of the plaintiff also under the law to discharge its burden under Section 101 of Indian Evidence Act. Even though it is the duty of the defendant to file a written statement, but if he has failed to do it, then straight away decree cannot be passed against him unless and until the plaintiff has to prove its case. If plaintiff has not proved its case before the court of law, then court may not pass a decree in favor of plaintiff, even though the defendant has not filed its written statement. Next concept is set-off. A claim set up against another, and it is a cross claim which partly offsets the original claim. Second, it is an extinction of debt of which two persons are reciprocally debtors to one another by the credits of which they are reciprocally creditors to one another. Where in a suit for recovery of money by the plaintiff, if the defendant finds that he has also a claim of some amount against the plaintiff, he can claim set-off in respect of the said amount. Next, a plea of set-off is a plea whereby a defendant acknowledges the justice of the plaintiff's demand but sets up another demand of his own to counterbalance that of the plaintiff, either in whole or in part. I will give you an illustration over here. A sues B on a bill of exchange for rupees 500. B holds a judgment against A for 1,000. The two claims being both definite and pecuniary demands may be set off. So what are the points or what are the conditions for filing a written statement? For filing the set-off along with the written statement. The suit must be for recovery of money. So the foremost condition for filing the WS to be kept in mind while drafting set-off is that the suit must be for the recovery of money. Second, the sum of money must be ascertained. Such sum must be legally recoverable, and it must be recoverable by the defendant or by all the defendants. It must not exceed the pecuniary jurisdiction of the court in which the suit is brought, and both the parties must fill in the defendant's claims to set off the same character as they fill in the plaintiff suits. So these are the points to be kept in mind while drafting a set-off by a lawyer or by a law student. Next, what is the effect of filing of set-off? When the defendant pleads a set-off, he is put in a position of the plaintiff as regards the amount claimed by him. So there are two suits, one by plaintiff against the defendant and other by the defendant against the plaintiff, and they are tried together. What if the plaintiff fails to get the relief in his suit? If the plaintiff fails to get the relief in his suit for any reason whatsoever, it does not affect the claim for set-off by the defendant, and a decree may be passed in favor of the defendant if he is able to prove his claim. So, if the plaintiff does not prove his case to the court of law against the defendant, then in that particular circumstance, the set-off or the counterclaim, as the case may be, they may go on. It will not affect it. It does not affect the claim for set-off by the defendant, and a decree may be passed in favor of the defendant if he is able to prove his claim before the court of law. So, my dear students, this is all about today's lecture. But before parting with today's lecture, I just want to apprise you with the new topic which I am going to take in my next lecture. In my next lecture, I just want to comment upon the points to be taken up while drafting a counterclaim and also the points of distinction between the set off and counterclaim in my next lecture. Hope from this lecture you have learnt a lot. In case of any query or doubt, then you may write a mail to me at my email ID, that is rahularoda.gn@jagannath.org. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great day ahead. We'll meet you soon.